Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Joel Hunter here with a brief screencast to cover for Philosophy 210, World Religions, the model that we're going to be using for analyzing our readings on the major religions of the world. And I discussed this in the syllabus video. And let me just reset this, the reason for this model. So one thing that can happen when you go through the text and you're reading about the different religions that we're studying is you're going to be coming across a lot of technical terms that are unique to the specific religion that you're reading about. It's really easy for your eyes to glaze over when you read words that are translations of a non-English word, and it's just completely unfamiliar. And even with the explanation, sometimes it can feel overwhelming to have to deal with what seems like jargon. And what I'd like to do is just encourage you to set that worry aside. And if you read a word like you're going to read the word samsara, what in the world is samsara? And I don't expect you to know that word. You might, but I don't expect you to know that word coming in. But it's going to be so crucial to understand the key concepts within Hinduism, for example, to know a word like that and many other terms. So what I've done is I've developed this model that will help organize and structure your response to the readings. And it's a way really to even help you with the vocabulary that's going to be unique to each religion. It will help you identify within a general theory of religion where the specific terms fit, how to coordinate them with other ideas and with broad topics. So this is going to be a way, I think, that's quite helpful for you to not gloss over the key terms and the key ideas, but to be able to fit them into some sort of structure that you can then use to reflect on and think about. That's the point of this. So in your discussion responses, and hopefully you have seen the video for that, you will need to be able to talk about some of the specific issues raised in this model, because the prompts that I've given you are going to be connected to these ideas that we're going to talk about here in this video. So that's why it's really important to, as far as you can, as much as you can, internalize this model. I encourage you to read and reread and reread this handout and to refer to it often as you're doing the reading and making notes. So let's talk then about what's going on in the model. I want to get to what the claims are and how you use it. Okay, so I've got a little introductory material here at the beginning, and this is simply to get you to appreciate what a philosophical approach to the world religions is like. It is not, what we're not doing is a comparative religion class. So I'm not asking you actually to compare in here using the menu, using the menu analogy. I'm not asking you to compare the strengths and weaknesses of steak to chicken. That's not actually a very interesting thing to do. I encourage you at least to think about going through the different religions not in a comparative way, but as a full meal all on its own. And so the idea is that your author, Houston Smith, is presenting each religion in the most charitable and interesting way, in the thought that this is what you need to know about what they teach and believe and practice. And this is a way to appreciate that. So I talked about this idea of suspending your prejudices, that is, your prejudgments about all religion or a specific religion or non-religion for that matter, and entering this as someone who is seeking to better understand what is being discussed in the text. And I like the menu analogy. So again, not a comparison. We're not comparing, steak to chicken. Okay, it is about appreciating each meal on its own. All right. So here, it's important to further differentiate between what philosophy is doing and what religion is doing. In one sense, they are after the same kinds of things. They are after truth. They're after, both philosophy and religion are after a grasp, let's put it that way, whether that's an intellectual grasp or whether it's an experiential grasp of the truth. And that means that they at least share a certain kind of goal in mind, but they go about that goal very, very differently. Philosophy uses unaided reason. It uses inquiry, inquisitiveness, aimed at clarifying and explaining and arguing. And that is not what religion deals with. Philosophy deals with concepts and judgments and arguments. Religion does not. It deals with faith and trust and devotion and love, things like that. So both philosophy and religion rely on reason to some extent. Philosophy operates with reason alone. For religion, reason is often an assistant to the more important connection that is sought with the truth. Okay, so sorry, the understanding what we're doing is, this is not a religion class. I'm not trying to teach religion as an adherent of religion. I am trying to guide you in learning about religions for yourself with the tools of philosophy. Okay, and that's a very different thing than, say, sitting in a Sunday school class. Okay, I'm sorry, I skipped over this little part here, but it's actually something I talked about in the syllabus video also, and that is one of the things that's difficult to do in talking about religion and identifying, what is an essential part of religion and what is non-essential, is figuring out how to differentiate religion from other kinds of practices and behaviors that often seem religious in character. And that can be, things like I mentioned, the sports phenomenon, or it could be politics. It could be family. It could be all kinds of things, human relationships. So this is a brief discussion of that, just being aware of that. And what we're after here in the model is precisely this tool to help us differentiate religion from non-religion, even if those non-religions have some of the characteristics that you often associate with religion. Okay, so let's talk about the model then. That's what we're after here, is distinguishing religion from non or pseudo-religions, right? So we've got three components to the model. Component number one is the human predicament. Excuse me. Component number two is salvation. Component number three is the supreme good for humans. So let's dig into these a little bit to explain what they mean. So the human predicament then is really the starting point for the religious response or religious expression. It's sort of like the first or original religious insight. Okay, and that is that we need to be saved. And I'm using the term salvation, although other terms are appropriate here as well. We need to be liberated. We need to be emancipated. We need to be rescued, that kind of thing. So there are multiple words. I'm going to stick to a single word just for simplicity and consistency. But realize that when I use the term salvation in the model, there are other terms that you will run across, and I talk about this in the model. Okay. So, well, if we're in a predicament, right? We like a prison. It would be rational to want to be released from that, to be freed from that, right? So that's what salvation is about. It's saved from that predicament. And how is it described? Well, here's a great quote. From some vast and universal burden of imperfection, of unreasonableness, of evil, of misery, of fate, of unworthiness, or of sin. Multiple descriptive terms to talk about this vast and universal burden. Okay, and that's one of the things you're going to see in each of the religions. They each have their own way to describe that vast and universal burden, that human predicament. And they're not interchangeable. They have different emphases. What they have in common is that they are, in fact, predicaments. Okay? So there's a couple other ways to describe this condition, the predicament, that I give you here in the write-up. So what this is then a diagnosis. The religion will diagnose this wretchedness, explain its causes and effects. I think you will find the medical metaphor very, very helpful. I always find it helpful when I'm trying to understand some of the technical language of the religion. So, what is that language like? So when you're talking about the diagnosis, what's it like? What is the state of sickness? Sometimes it's called, it's using the language of bondage, like oppression or slavery or prison, being imprisoned. Sometimes it's the language of health and sickness, ill or illness, a disorder. Sometimes the language of knowledge, right? Ignorance. That's the predicament or wretchedness or source of our wretchedness, unreasonableness. So what the religions then do, characteristically at least, is examine the evidence for that predicament, to show just how bad it can be, and often is. And if you think about, this is where empathy is helpful in your reading of these texts, because if you just sort of set aside your own life, which maybe has been a life of privilege, maybe not, but in many ways maybe you have never experienced some of the worst things that humans experience and continue to experience around the world. I mean, think about how many children starve to death every day. It would fill a stadium. So the fact that there is a lot of human suffering going on, and that not only is there just the subjective part of that suffering, but then there's the effects of that suffering. Like, what is it like for a family to endure watching a child starve to death? What is going on in the political sphere that leaders would use starvation as a weapon against people? So there's a lot of ways that you can look at the wretchedness that a lot of humanity is undergoing and has undergone and will undergo. And so what they do is then they expect that you are directly acquainted with these kinds of things. If you haven't experienced in your own life, well, good for you. But you might be on the receiving end of someone who does these kinds of things, right? Or who has experienced some of these things. Or if you're an empathetic person, you're coming alongside someone who is in the grip of things that are horrible. And a lot of it can be, of course, self-inflicted. Maybe that's really where the key to this all starts, is the ways in which we put ourselves in a human predicament. So yeah, I mean, the internal and the external causes for being in the predicament are things that you will see differentiated in the religions. Okay, so the point here is that there's lots of ways to empirically describe the kinds of things that are going on with the human predicament. All right, this leads us to the second point, salvation. So anything we're calling religion is going to be concerned with not just identifying and recognizing that we're in a human predicament, but of solving that, right? We want to provide a remedy for it. We want to overcome it. And so that, the study of that, or the pursuit of that, is what is typically called soteriology, or that's the topic area. The study of salvation. You know, what is, why is it needed? What is the process? What is its goal? Okay, each religion is going to have its own soteriology. All right, so the one of the key things that you'll see is brought out in soteriology is an attempt to show the very great need that humans have for it. And so this comes out in two simple ways, two not simple ways, but two distinct ways. So one way in which the need is understood is in terms of where we're going. What is the ultimate value or worth in human life? What is our paramount end or aim in life? Okay, if we can identify that, then any other kinds of aims that we might have, like to have a secure job or to retire at 60, all those other aims are at best inferior to the aim of achieving, reaching this escape from, this freedom from the human predicament, or at least the effects of the human. Maybe we can't escape from the human predicament, but we can mitigate the effects of it and experience a higher kind of life. Okay, so that goal then would be the highest thing that we could aim for, highest thing we could achieve, and so any other subsidiary aims that we have in life would be inferior to that. Not that they don't have value, but that their value is always going to be relative to that highest aim. So that's what the salvation is to, and then I've already mentioned what it's from, right? So the issue then that soteriology will discuss is, well, look, it's not like salvation is automatic. I can't just sort of naturally go through life and escape the human predicament, or, be released from, at least partially, the effects of that predicament. So I might not get that highest aim in life. As I'm going right now, as I naturally am, maybe in ignorance, right? Or, maybe, just having desires that are tugging me in different directions and I feel confused and things like that. As I naturally am, I'm missing out on that highest aim, that highest good. And so that's what salvation has to address, right? It's like, okay, so I need something, I need to go in a different direction than the direction I just am naturally and easily going in order to reach this highest aim, in order to escape from the human predicament. Okay, so that's escape from. So salvation points, as I say here, simultaneously in two directions: salvation from the human predicament, salvation to the supreme good or higher life. Okay. Then there's the issue of let's see, how one gains knowledge of this salvation. And that's a very interesting topic. It is discussed in both philosophy and in theology. Theology is literally the study of God or divine things. And so, let's talk about this. It's like, have you ever heard of this condition? It's called aphantasia. Aphantasia is the Greek prefix a is a negation, so it means not. Fantasia is fantasizing or imagining, and so aphantasia is the condition of not being able to picture things in your mind. And you think about that for a second. If I ask you to picture your favorite pet, or an animal that you recently met, or something like that, can you do that? I mean, can you do something other than deal in words in your mind? Can you picture something from your memory, from recollection, or put something together? If I ask you to do that, can you picture, I don't know, a guinea pig unicorn? Can you do that? Can you come up with an image of that? Right. Well, there's a very small percentage of the human population that cannot do that. And that condition is called aphantasia. And no matter how much you try to get them to develop that capability, they simply are incapable. So it seems like sometimes there is a similar kind of thing going on with religious insight. And so, if you even just going through these first two steps here, the human predicament and salvation, I mean, you may just be completely lost as to what in the world this could possibly mean, or what it could be about. What experience is this drawn from? What is it like? And so the world of the religious people around you may seem like a strange one, like to the person who has aphantasia, the world of these people who can have pictures in their head. Wow. It's just a completely different way to live. And it might be a similar kind of thing for some people. At least it seems that way to me. That in my discussions with people about the subject, it does seem that there's a very, very small percentage of the human population that has this, religious faculty, right? Whatever this faculty is that gives you the ability to grasp and experience and understand the human predicament and the concept of salvation. It does seem like, some people lack that faculty. So this will be very difficult, for if you have that condition, then this will be a difficult task for you, this class. However, that's the point of the model. The model, at least there, is something here in black and white in written form that you can take at the level of ideas, at least, and use it as a way to figure out what these religions are saying. So, that's I don't know. I don't know why I interjected that, but I guess it had to do with this question of religious insight. So, because it's related to this question of how you go about, getting knowledge of this salvation. I mean, it's easy enough, I suppose, to get knowledge of the human predicament. I give you some concrete examples of that. But what about the way out of this, or the effects of human suffering and things like that? How is that to be discovered? And so religions talk about this in different ways. They talk about it as a path or a journey or a pilgrimage. The Tao, Taoism is the very name of the religion is way. So in other words, it's the way to this liberation. It's the way to a higher life. Okay, so this the revelation that is needed to get on the path, to get on the journey, may not be accessible to you. I don't know. but that is what is often reported, or is not often, it's always reported by the adherents of the religion, that some sort of insight or revelation into this path, into this journey of salvation, is going to be part of what is described. Okay. Moving on to the third and last component is the supreme good for humans, and I've already mentioned it in the previous one. This is what the salvation is to. Okay, this is the end point. This is what we are aiming for. Okay, so the quote there from William James is, "Our supreme good lies in harmoniously adjusting ourselves to the unseen order of the universe." This unseen order or supersensible reality, and I've got a footnote there unpacking that because that's not an obvious idea. So have a look at that. This unseen order or supersensible reality is the source of the supreme good, as well as, in most religions, source of aid in one's quest to attain it. Okay, so we'll see that unpacked a little later on. But this is what the key idea here is that the supreme good for humans is available, it's accessible, it's achievable in this life, at least to a certain extent. And that the requirement is, as James says, is there's a harmonious adjustment, right? We can't attain it unless we are harmoniously adjusted to it. So we have to live life. We have to live a life in such a way that the beliefs and actions and choices are harmonious with the value of that supreme good. Okay, and so that will require some adjustment by us. We have to adjust our lives to enter into that kind of harmony. Okay, so that's part of that quest. That's part of that journey then toward the supreme good, is to learn how to live in harmony with it. And in Hinduism, this can be things like the practice of yoga, and of different forms of yoga at that is part of that process. Okay, so it's not that yoga is the supreme good, but it is one of the methods to harmoniously adjust yourself to that supreme good. Okay, so let's see what to say here. So really, 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 really important footnote here where I talk about what this phrase unseen order means. So an order is not an order is like a realm or a world, for that matter, but it is it suggests an organization, right? A structure. So if it's unseen, though, that means it isn't accessible to the senses or the extensions that we can add to our senses, to help us see further or see smaller, or things like that, or hear better. So whatever this unseen order is, it is inaccessible to the senses, but it's real. Okay, so there's already philosophically there's some work to do to talk about the nature of reality. And so that's what this footnote is doing. It's trying to explain to you, how to understand within the religion what they take to be real, ultimately real, and derivatively real. In other words, dependent on whatever is ultimate or absolute. Okay, so that footnote, please do look at that very, very closely. It's important for understanding some of the language of the model itself. Okay, excuse me, let me get a sip here. Okay, so in the quest to attain the supreme good, to the salvation to the supreme good, is we would expect then this adjustment that's needed to be involved in some of our ethical principles changing, our attitudes, our behaviors, right? And that these are not only going to have an individual focus or dimension, but they're also going to have a social dimension. So the idea of a religious community forming around this common pursuit of the supreme good, is going to affect how we live with each other and how we live with others who are not on the same journey that we are. Okay, so that is, those are some empirical things, sociological things, psychological things that you can be looking for in the readings as to, if someone is on the path of salvation, what is that like in terms of their behaviors and their attitudes toward themselves and towards others? What does the religion say about that? Okay, so let's see what else I wanted to say about it. So those are the basic principles, those 3 principles. I call it scaffolding. There's a lot more that we're going to hang off of this scaffolding, off of each of the 3. And I want to get into that because these are the specific kinds of issues that the more of these that you can fill out based on your reading, the better you're going to understand what's going on, the better you're going to understand what the technical terms mean, and you'll be able to do well on the quizzes and, of course, on the online discussion, which are, the questions are drawn from the model. All right, so let's look at this. How do I want to proceed? Yeah, so let's just look at these questions under each of the 3 principles and give you some idea of the kinds of things to expect. And these are questions, again, you can strive to answer as you're doing the reading. If you see one of these addressed in your reading, go ahead and maybe write it down. That might be something you could do, is print out this list, maybe do a copy and paste of this list of the 3 principles with all of these questions under them, and print it out on a separate page, and then you can fill it out as you're, as part of your note-taking as you're doing your reading. That's probably quite a good exercise, and will help you document, the specifics. It's easy to get lost. A lot of times your reading is, 60, 70 pages plus a week, and it's going to be hard to retain all of that. So note-taking is going to be very important, which, I mentioned in another video. Okay, so let's talk about the human predicament. How does religion describe the human predicament? You need to be able to answer that question. So the kinds of things that you can look for then to answer that question are, what is its cause? What are its symptoms? What are its moral and noetic effects? So look up the word noetic if you don't know it, but it essentially has to do with the mind, the intellect. Is it curable? Can it be cured in this life? Okay, those are the kinds of questions about the human predicament: cause, symptoms, and whether or not it's curable. Okay, and if it's curable, when is it curable? Under the second principle, the principle of salvation, then, is you want to be able to say how the religion describes salvation. So here are some questions to draw out to help you do this description. What is the cure to our unsatisfactory condition? So above, in the human predicament, we wanted to know if there is a cure. And if there is, what is it? That goes here. How do we obtain knowledge of the cure? Do we just automatically know? I don't know. I mean, that seems quite unlikely. What is needed to treat our condition? What is needed to treat our condition? Is it knowledge? Is it, a moral change? Is it something else? Is it a particular way of life? Is it isolation? Is it community? Those kinds of things. How is the cure implemented? Knowledge, love, deeds, mystical experience, some or all of these other things. So how is it done, right? How is salvation achieved? Once cured, what does the religion describe as the qualities of a healthy life? Okay, so assuming then that you have harmoniously adjusted to the unseen order, that you have attained a degree at least of salvation, if not the whole thing, what does that look like? What does that healthy life look like? Third principle, the supreme good. How does the religion describe the supreme good for humans? What is its nature? Okay, so this is a metaphysical question. Again, very important to look at that that section, especially that long footnote. How are the lesser goods of life related to it? You know, things like success, fame, power, wealth, health, physical health. How are the lesser goods of life related to the supreme good? Is it attainable in this mortal life, partially or wholly? How does the religion describe the state of being in contact or union with this supreme good? Maybe the supreme good is God himself, say in either a pantheistic or monotheistic system. What does it mean to be in union with that? Right? So that's going to be described in some cases. How does the religion describe the unseen order or divine reality? So that those are terms synonymous there, okay? Basically synonymous. The unseen order, divine reality. Is the unseen order accessible to humans? Obviously, it's not accessible to the senses, right? Because it's unseen. But maybe it's accessible to the mind in some way or to some other human faculty. If so, if it is accessible, how is it accessible and for what purpose? How does this unseen order relate to the physical or material universe? Its value, that is the value of the physical material universe, and the use and value of our 5 outer senses. Okay, so that's a really important question, because there you're trying to see these two orders, the unseen order and the physical order, as in some sort of relationship, either one of equal metaphysical status, like equally real, or, as in many cases, one is dependent on the other. Maybe in a state of, maybe the physical world is sort of parasitic or derivative of the unseen order or the divine reality. How does the religion describe that relationship? How does embodied life, human life, figure into the way or path of salvation to the supreme good? So the stress there is embodied life, right? So life how does our physical life then, you could say, figure into the way or path of salvation, supreme good? Is it something that cooperates with that path? Is it something that has to be brought along dragging, kicking and screaming? How does the physical aid or interfere with this path of salvation? Okay? How does the religion describe the moral, spiritual purification or transformation needed to adjust oneself to the unseen order? I think that one kind of speaks for itself. Again, going back to that concern that as we naturally are, as we're naturally going, that we are in danger of missing out on that supreme good. And so some sort of transformation or purification of our life is needed to be harmoniously adjusted to the unseen order. What training, self-discipline, guidance is needed to make this adjustment? A guru? A book? A divine being? A friend? A teacher? So on. There might be many kinds of ways in which one enters into some kind of training to attain this purification or transformation. Maybe a lot depends on yourself of achieving a level of self-discipline, right? But maybe there's some assistance to help you do that. Maybe there's some spiritual directors or guides. So what does a religion have to say about that? And then, is help available from the unseen order? In other words, from the divine reality? Is there ways that the divine reality breaks into our ordinary life in this world and gives us help or aid toward salvation, toward the supreme good. Okay? So there you go. There are a series of questions under each of the headings of our model that the more of these you can answer, and maybe some of them really don't have an answer in the specific religion, they aren't relevant, and that's fine too. That's good to know. Don't force an answer into any of the questions, but use this then as a tool to help you organize your thoughts about what the religion is teaching, and this will form a great basis not only for your knowledge that you need to do well on the quizzes, but also for your responses to the online discussion. So with that, this is the model for analyzing religions. It's available on Canvas for you to download, and I hope that you find it useful. If you have any questions about any of the words or claims in the model, to unpack it, do let me know, and I'd be glad to discuss those with you. And I can do that, of course, online, and we can clarify anything that needs to be clarified. But I'll be seeing you, and good luck using the model, and I'll talk to you soon.